KCAAradio.com.
KCAA.
Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening.
And a pleasant afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Water Zone. I'm Rob Starr, along with Mr. Chris Davey, the man who knows everything about water, hydrology, planting, gardening. He's an expert. I wish someday when I grow up I'm going to be like him. So, Chris Davey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Robert. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I want to point out today, and I didn't say right at the beginning of when we got on the line here, it is the summer solstice today. Longest day of the year.
Wow. I can stay up later.
You can stay up late. Yeah, starting tomorrow, the days start to get shorter, buddy. And you know what it's going to be? Pretty soon it's going to be, dang, it's 5 o'clock and it's already dark.
Yep, that is true. That is
I
true.
bet Chris knows it's the summer solstice today. Did you hear about those crazy loons in England that tried to deface the stones at Stonehenge?
Yeah, they sprayed it orange?
Green or orange with some cornflower-based stuff, right? And it's crazy, but yeah, you know that Stonehenge, right? It's the those Easter Island figures that are down in the South Pacific on Easter Island. You know those heads that stick up out of the sand. Well, rumor has it that the other end of those guys are their toes that stick out in Stonehenge.
I saw the video of that, of some lady trying to grab a hold of the guy, and he turned around and sprayed her.
I know. I saw it. Yeah. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. Well, let's bring somebody who is believable right in. Miss Chris Austin, the purveyor of Maven's Notebook. Chris, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, but boy, that's a depressing story you guys were just talking about. But yeah, come on, people. These are like landmarks, and they're like natural things. They did that. Someone went up and graffitied, I think, in the Owens River somewhere, and they had to close down the gorge like last summer because people did that. So, but none of our listeners do that because our listeners are cool.
Absolutely.
Do that.
I just don't understand the world as it's going today, and I won't get into the politics at all. But we got to have a better situation going on throughout the world. I mean, when they deface everything and all this other stuff that's going on, it's just crazy. But that's all I'm going to say on that subject because we're here to talk about water.
Yeah, well, and not that that doesn't necessarily get any cheerier, because we're here in California, we're fighting about water as we always do and probably always will, unfortunately. Lots of stuff going on. The big news today that just came out is that the opponents of the very controversial Delta Tunnel project, which is this project to take water from Northern California and route it around the Delta and deliver it to Southern California and some farms and a bit even to the Bay Area. But this tunnel idea is it's been hated forever. This is like the fifth iteration of this project that they've been trying to do since the 1980s. And so the opponents won an injunction that the project has to go through get another type of permit essentially before it can continue. They're trying to do borings and down into the soil, because they're trying to route the tunnel, and they need to know what the geology is for the tunnel route, and so that's what they want to do these borings. So, very boring story, but
it was gaining some momentum. So has has the court stopped it?
Well, right now they say the court has said that they cannot do these borings until they go and get this other. I'm going to call it a permit because it's the closest thing to a permit, but they would need to go through a procedure at the Delta Stewardship Council. And that procedure is they file for something and then people can appeal it. This is a very controversial project. It will get appealed. Then there will be a hearing process and a whole thing to go through that. Yeah, it's, they're going to do what they can do at every turn, and they're at least at this point they are successful. I imagine that they will appeal this ruling, DWR or somebody will appeal it, and we will see what happens. But
will it happen in our lifetime?
Oh, well, very interestingly, last week, or actually this week, just a few days ago, I worked on it last week, was they did the cost estimate for the tunnel and the analysis, the benefit cost analysis, and they were presenting this to Metropolitan, to the board of directors. And it's a $20 billion tunnel. That's not a surprise to anybody. Look, what was my big moment was when they were talking about the construction schedule and that this project won't be in operation until 2045, 20 years from now. I'm like, ponder that. I'm like, wow, I may not even be here then.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I've been doing this for so long, and then, we talk about we're analyzing things into the future and under 2030 conditions and 2050 conditions. And back in 2012, 2013, when they talked about 2030 conditions, that was a long ways off. But I started realizing the other day when I saw, that some program to monitor the Delta was going to stay in place through 2030. And then I was like, wow, that's a long time. And then I was like, wait, no, it's not that long. Sort of like when you're listening to the radio and they say, here's a golden oldie, and they play something, from your time, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, am I a golden? It's one of those kind of moments where I'm like, wow.
It's like the desal plant in Carlsbad. It took them over 17 years.
Yeah,
for that.
Yeah, a lot of permitting, definitely.
Yeah. Wow.
Sites Reservoir.
Yes.
Oh, gosh, they've been discussing that one for decades, but that was a federal water project at first, which kind of is why things move much slower on the federal level for water project stuff, because they have a lot of water projects, a lot of things to do, and not quite as expedient as state-run projects, although, it was pretty darn slow. 30 years is a long time, and that's just the planning.
But that's just like the high-speed train in California. I mean, it's not complete. It's not completed. How many years has that been? More than 10, more than 15.
Oh, well, I am not a fan of high-speed rail. I did not vote for it. I did not understand really why people did. I just thought at the time, this is really stupid. So I did not vote for it. But yeah, and now we got this project. And if you drive down the 99 and go through Fresno, they have these huge cement monolithic structures to hold tracks they're just kind of broken off pieces. It's yeah. And, and then you're also driving down the freeway, and then, they're like, screw high-speed rail, build dams, not trains, But,
well, they were spending $400,000 a year on marketing that project for many, many years. And it's like those who live in California, there's always been talk. I mean, going back to the 60s and 70s, where they wanted to have trains going from Los Angeles to Las Vegas and try to get moving all the buses off the freeway because there was lots of bus accidents and stuff. And nothing ever came of that.
But guess what though?
That train is coming.
They're building the high-speed rail from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, which actually makes sense. People will use that.
People will use it. Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, but for those that are in the Central Valley that are saying, no trains, build dams instead, the problem with that is that we, the voters, approve the spending on the high-speed rail. And the government cannot just subvert the will of the voters and make that money go to something else. So that's why we're stuck with that unless we want to take it to the ballot. Anyways.
Well, Chris, I'll tell you, shorten segment a little bit today, but before we get into that, you, as a former resident of Southern California, now living in Northern California, I bet you wish you don't live down in here anymore, because that fire in Calabasas, it completely smoked out the valley up there.
Oh yeah, well, is that the post fire that was started in Gorman? Yeah, that was very close to where I live down there, Santa Clarita. So yeah, although we've had our fair share of fires up here too, so it's like it's fire season, and we didn't really have much of a fire season last year. Had lots of precipitation this year. We have lots of undergrowth, lots of stuff ready to burn. I think in the Daily Digest today, what they said, 100% ready to burn, chance of fire, 100%. So, crossing our fingers.
Yeah, and then I read something else, Chris, about, you burst the bubble of my fishing trip for white sturgeon coming up at the in the fall.
Yeah, white sturgeon's been selected as a candidate to be listed. So it's not listed yet, but it's a candidate, so that it gets some protections for that. A lot of them died the big algae bloom in San Francisco Bay took a big toll on the numbers of sturgeon. So sorry, no sturgeon fishing for you.
I didn't realize until I read your article about there's a green sturgeon too, but the white one.
Oh yeah.
They said could grow up to could live 100 years, and they can weigh almost as much as 2 tons.
And they're dinosaurs.
And they're huge. Like sometimes, and there's pictures of them, and they're as tall as a person or as long as a person. Huge.
Wow.
Huge.
Now I want to see Chris in his kayak fishing and catching one of those.
Go for a boat ride, I think.
I was just going to say they'll pull you all around the river for that. But yeah, the fires are making a big impact on stuff too with fish, and it's getting really scary with everything's getting attacked and everything with the algae bloom, and God, it's like everything's happening at once.
Yeah, and the algae blooms. Here comes the summer, and this is not limited to California. I mean, this is becoming a worldwide problem, a nationwide problem. Florida had, a big problem with algae, and this is one of those problems that's hard to see how it's going to get fixed, since there's just so much. It's the root is discharges into the waterways. We have too many nutrients in the water, and that's always tough. We in America, the phrase I like to use sometimes is we think if some is good, more is better, right? So you think, wow, nutrients. Well, give up more nutrients, that makes things better, but no, it makes algae grow. It's too much nutrients, So that's going to be a big issue.
We saw
summer plans.
Chris and I saw pictures years ago in Florida, and it was like slime, green slime of an alligator coming out of the water. The thing was just filled, was covered with this yuck, and it was terrible. So
yeah.
And I know there was a company we had on, a chemical company, and they were making something out of this, out of the algae. They were trying to convert it to something useful, like makeup and some other things. I guess we should find out how they were doing.
Well,
you can get a light. From what I understand, tell me if I'm wrong, Chris. Either one of you. I thought like in certain states you can have algae farms, but you have to. Go ahead.
It would be for biofuels. I know that they were looking at doing that in the the Salton Sea, the Imperial Valley. They were looking into algae for biofuel.
Mr. Davey, any final questions?
Nope, I'm good. Chris, appreciate you coming on again every day. Sorry about the shortened segment today, but we got a bit longer second segment.
All right. Well, y'all have a good evening.
We will do that, and thanks and our listeners, please go to, I say this every week, and I sincerely mean it, go to mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber. You'll get all the latest news in California, what's happening in the waters, and she has news from all over the place, so it's great to have. You can also become a sponsor, which is a good thing. And again, I don't know how one woman puts out all the data that she puts out every single day. And I give her lots of kudos for that. And she's a blessed person for our show, and we do appreciate it. So, Chris, we will talk to you next week. You have a good, cooler weekend.
Yes, everyone, enjoy.
Have a great week, Chris.
All right, we're going to take our short break for a commercial, and we'll be right back with our featured guest. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
Because the forecast for this May through June is a torrential downpour of points. Site One is proud to introduce our exclusive NDS Point Storm 24 event. Partners Program members who use drainage, hardscapes, and irrigation products can earn up to 4x the rewards in May and June for purchasing quality NDS products. That's 4x the points on a whole range of product solutions for residential and commercial projects. NDS is a leader in water management solutions and is known for superior quality and performance, as well as ease of installation and extreme durability. You can count on Site One and NDS to help you grow your business. NDS Point Storm 24 from May through June. It's the perfect storm of points and performance.
Well, all right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone Radio Show. I'm your host, Chris Davey, along with the all-knowing Rob Starr, poised at the other microphone here. We're certainly glad you're with us today. Our guest is a company, kind of startup in the early stages of development here. They're called Accelerated Filtration, Inc. They also go by their TLA. That's their three-letter acronym of AFI. And they're going to tell us about their company, the market, the customers, the product, and why they're in this very rapidly evolving segment of the water industry. But first, let me give you a bit of background on AFI's president and CEO, Scott Burr. And then Rob is going to introduce Rick Penn, who is AFI's chief commercial officer. So talking about Rick for just a second, a lot of creds here for this guy. So Scott Burr, he is the CEO of Accelerated Filtration, whose purpose it is developing and commercializing technologies to address the global water challenges. So before Rick was with AFI, he was 24 years with the Dow Chemical Company in their Dow Water and Process Solutions group, working on filtration and wastewater. And as many of us know, that business was transferred over to DuPont, where he stayed as the emerging innovations leader. So just, kind of racking up the creds here. He's got a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and a Master of Science in Engineering Mechanics from Michigan Tech, go Huskies, and a PhD in Engineering Mechanics from Virginia Tech. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about Rick?
Yeah, as Rick Penn is the Chief Commercial Officer, Rick's responsible for the commercial strategy, development, and delivery of ensuring the integrated commercial success for accelerated filtration. And in his role, he focuses his time across multiple disciplines, including brand and marketing, sales, partnership development, customer experience, and innovation to drive business growth and market share for AFI. And prior to joining Accelerated Filtration, Rick has spent 20 years working across multiple industries, developing and deploying his commercial expertise, helping companies in the areas of revenue growth, maximizing market success, commercial transformation, and business planning. So I guess they have the top two guys in the company, and they're going to go far. So welcome to the Water Zone, both Scott and Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to ask you to give us the story behind the inception of accelerated filtration. Why you started this venture, kind of the background to it. And Scott, since you're the CFO and one of the co-founders, I'll let you start by answering that question.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, first off, Chris and Rob, thanks for having us on the show. We're excited to be with you here today. So AFI, the background behind it was just a really good technology with a really nice set of patents that protected it in a product form that needed to be taken into the next generation. It had been in the market a little bit and kind of stalled out on the rails in a corporate development process. Those of us who knew how good the technology was, knew what the next form needed to be, and knew how important it was to bring that technology to the forefront and commercialize it based on the critical needs we have globally today with respect to clean water. That's where the inception was. So we came together, made a deal with DuPont to acquire the patents and the technology. We formed Accelerated Filtration in 2020, and we're off.
Well, Scott, you have a super rich background in R&D and technology, commercialization and stuff. How do you approach innovation at Accelerated Filtration?
I think the key thing is to A, remember we're engineering dominated, and B, remember customers have really good ideas. So we like to approach innovation with this mindset that customers know what they need, but they aren't always able to articulate it. Or there may be times when you have really good conversations and you can see a need based on things you've pieced together from other conversations, where you now start to dial in and understand what it is they need. So we're customer driven, but again, customers don't always know what they need. So we work on this thorough understanding of the problem. And here's one of our mantras, right? We talk about innovation a lot, and we talk about ideation sessions a lot in our global atmosphere, right? That's a common thing to do. Have you had an ideation session? And we hold fast to a flip version of that. And it is, you have no business trying to solve a problem that you don't understand. So in our innovation process, the first thing we do is really dial in on the problem and what the problem is to be solved. And we spend time there making sure that we really, really understand the problem before we start coming up with solutions for it. And when you couple that kind of an approach with a highly creative team, we start to get some really good ideas that really make sense and can solve legitimate problems. Second piece of that, we hold ourselves accountable that there are a lot of really cool ideas, but if an idea can't make money, it's no longer cool. So we have to generate ideas that can make money. So work on problems that are real, understand the problem before we come up with solutions. And when we do, make sure that the solution we develop can make money.
Rick, I would imagine being part of this whole process and seeing it kind of from the beginning, you got your thumb on this as well. Any additional comments from you, buddy?
I think probably just a springboard off of some of the things Scott said, where it comes into play in my area on the commercial side is finding a home for that innovation. So to Scott's point, you can have a really good idea, you can have a solution, but all that costs time and money, right, with resources internally. So before you start going to apply that too far, what we've done today, and we're not deviating from our product form as it sits today, but it's listening to the marketplace, actually contacting companies that we believe where there might be a nice application, and finding a partner that might want to join us in that innovation, meaning they're at a certain place and they're innovative savvy, and they're looking to be a first mover to continue expanding what they're doing in the marketplace. And if we can team up on that piece to do all this stuff that Scott was just talking about, because these guys here can figure out anything. We've got really smart engineers, and I've sat in the room with them, and it's amazing to watch how they figure out a problem. But then it's taking that conversation into the marketplace to see if the stars can align to find, timing and opportunity to come to an inflection point.
Awesome. Well, if you don't mind, let's talk about your partners and your people for just a minute there, because we're talking to, as Rob said, the two leaders of the company here. But in a lot of times, companies talk about the culture and their leadership and the style and all that stuff. And we have a unique chance here with you two guys to get a little bit deeper into that and talk about how it works just for you, especially in technology-driven companies. Sometimes, you got the geek factor or whatever it is, and how does this play in that sort of a thing? So tell us about your people there and your culture.
Well, our culture is excellence in everything. And that sounds big, but and many people have accused us of it being too large, but it's not. It's excellence in everything, and it starts with how we treat each other and our customers. So with that basis, whatever time we have available, whatever tools we have at our disposal, we will produce the best possible product we can within the time frame we have available that we need to produce it. Many times for engineers, that can be very difficult because we want to optimize infinitum, right? We just want to keep optimizing. And we have a culture where we understand what needs to be done, and we have a time frame within which to do it. And we do it with the best that we can do in that time with the tools we have and the team we have. So to pull that off, you need to make sure you have the right people on the bus, as Jim Collins says. We have very smart engineers and the ability to really interact well together, get good, solid conversations on the table, address the elephants in the room, and make sure that we get to the core of the issue. And that's really what we hold fast to.
I'm going to let Rob ask a question here in a second, but Rob, I'm going to pinch one from your list, buddy, real quick here. But because, just a little background about, your short-term company, you just got started. Can you, if you don't mind, can you tell some of our listeners how you got invested? Is it private invested? Is it, is investor funded? Did you get BAF grants? How's that work?
So we started out initially, before we had worked on our first round of funding, we got a Business Accelerator Fund grant from the state of Michigan, a fantastic program, enabled us to really build that first concept and really helped us gear up to raise money. So a really good program within the state of Michigan. That Business Accelerator Fund grant got us moving for us $30,000, got us off the ground, put us in a strong position to raise capital. We raised a pre-seed round, and that is primarily 50-50 split between venture capital and angels. And then we raised also a seed round with our investors staying with us through that second round and adding a couple of additional investors. So we are primarily VC/angel held, about 50-50.
When did you get into the startup space yourself, Scott? Is that relatively new for you, or?
Well, it's an interesting journey. I spent a lot of time in the startup space from the corporate perspective. So while I was at Dow Chemical, being a mechanical engineer in a chemical company, when we were interested in mechanical type things, many times I got the opportunity in those new business or startup venture analyses to put in my 2 cents and see what the patent structures look like, or see what the mechanical component was. And so doing that, I spent a lot of time with a lot of different startup companies over my career there, and always loved the space. I loved the do or die space. When something needed to be developed and you needed to know if it had legs or not, if you put it in that startup space where it is do or die, single focus, you're not balancing, do we do this against something else? It is do this or die. I found that fascinating, and I love these small core teams, that how they would gel and just be laser focused on producing something. And so throughout my career, I always knew I wanted to be there. But I also work in a fantastic company with super talented people, brilliance all around me. And I loved that. So I ran that career through until it was, I had a chance to pop out. My kids left the nest, and I could dive into the startup atmosphere really be there. So that was the great build for me to be able to jump into that atmosphere I had longing for over a career and had spent a lot of time analyzing components of.
Well, as an engineer myself, I got to ask, so transitioning from lab validations to commercial products presents a lot of unique challenges. So what strategy have you employed to navigate these hurdles successfully?
I would say it's summarized in actively managing the risks. And that's the hard part for us as engineers, right? But risk analysis is really everything. It tells you when you're ready to move from the lab to the field. And it's the simple questions of what are the risks of moving at this point, and are they risks we can reasonably take, or is that risk too large and we need a little further development? I heard a statement made one time. I don't know the source of it, but they said if you aren't embarrassed by your prototype, you spent too long getting to the market. So there's some truth in that, right? You need to get into the market as fast as you possibly can with the minimum viable thing you can get there and not embarrass yourself too badly. Then you start to get the feedback and customer input that you need to move quickly forward. So that's what really we look at, how quickly can we get to the level where we're ready to manage that risk. The risk tells us when we go. We complete that minimum testing in the lab that we can because reality exists outside the walls of our lab. Start getting input from people. Be ready to accept all the criticism. I love the person who's been in the industry for decades and is willing to just be the seagull over your idea and just tell you everything that's wrong, because then we really learn, we get to the core part of the issue, and we can embrace that and move forward. Second key piece is you have to expect failure. You're going to put something out that's going to break. And if you don't break it, you haven't learned yet. So that's, again, back to the risks. Know what can break, what the risk of that breaking is. Understand that it's going to happen. Buckle your seatbelt and get ready and have good development partners.
Yeah, you got to build in the quality, not inspect for it when you get down to the end of the line. But question, because I know we've been talking a lot about your strategies and your thoughts and your business prowess and all that, but why don't you describe your product so our listeners get a real good idea of what we're talking about?
Here's the product, and this is why we're all so excited about it. You say water filter, you say suspended solids concentrator. If we take a step back, water has, if we put the two basic things that water has in it, things that are suspended, things that are dissolved. And especially today when we hear things like PFAS and other contaminants in the water, and of course a big one, salt, right? We need to remove salt from the water so we can drink it. Those things that are dissolved require us to first remove the things that are suspended. For years and years, when we have a globe that primarily has enough good fresh water for us to start with, we have technologies that deal well with that. But what happens when we need to start using water we used to turn up our nose at, or we have to recycle water in order to be sustainable, and it's full of suspended things that now it's very difficult to remove, very costly, lots of labor. That's where you get into this realm where now this is a hard problem. And the awesome thing about our product, Valrex, is a filter and a concentrator in one. So it helps filter out those suspended solids, even when it's really dirty. When you look at that and you say, how do I start? We're the place you start. Those heavy levels of suspended solids can be removed, so you can use that filtrate, or you can take it further and remove the things that are dissolved within it. And you get a concentrate product that you can sustainably and ethically and affordably deal with and put in the proper place. That's what our product does. So it is a filter and a concentrator. It helps you tear into water that wasn't accessible before. It makes easy access to difficult water.
Can you describe the filter itself so people get a feeling, is it stainless steel or what, or what micron level can it go to, and things of that sort?
Sure. So we're a stainless steel system, primarily constructed of 316L at this point. We can go to the duplex grades and exotics when needed. But really at the core of the system is a filter core. And it is a slotted core, a stainless steel foil that's slotted with slots that are 45 microns in width right now. We'll be getting smaller here in the near future. And it's actively cleaned with brushes, so the water goes around it, and it's a cross-flow configuration, meaning some of the water goes through the filter, some of the water goes past. So when you take an elongated slot oriented perpendicular to flow and you clean it with brushes every few milliseconds, you have the ability to filter really dirty water and keep the filter clean and keep filtering. So there's no backwash, it's always active. The water flow past it is what moves the brushes to keep it clean, and a very efficient system that can handle very, very dirty and difficult water.
Yeah, and maybe Scott, expand on it's a 45 micron slot, but because of the technology, the way that Scott has designed the system, it can get down below that. So in the right circumstances, right, Scott?
Sure, that's correct. So while the base slot is 40 microns, and that's kind of a dead stop for you can't fit a bigger particle through a smaller hole. The physics are also that if you push the water past the slot much faster than you pull it through or push it through, then you get a discrimination where that 45 micron slot can actually cut off particles like a sand particle down to 20 microns. So we use the physics of if you push it past the slot faster than you pull the water through the slot, a wide slot can filter small particles. And that's another part of the benefit of the system. It aids its fouling resistance. So you can use a wider slot to filter smaller particles based on the physics and just the mechanics of the system.
Well, let me ask this question, getting down a little bit more into the nitty gritty, all pun intended. Just wanna, I mean, we've had lots of people on the show, right, talking about filtration, and all different kinds of media and screens and discs and membranes of every sort and description. So let me ask you about the source water for this, right? So maybe you can explain to our listeners what sort of water are you filtering, right? This obviously isn't going to produce drinking water at the end. So you're talking about ag or wastewater or dewatering, the different sorts of markets that you serve. Kind of give us the 30,000 foot view of that, if you will.
Sure. So let's take a few case examples. Surface water transport, very large in Canada. If you need to produce water for oil production, you may take it from a lake, a river, a stream, a municipal sewage pond. All of those sources are highly variable, and they contain a lot of things that can foul traditional filters. So you need a lot of cleaning power, and you need the ability to filter out fairly fine so that the downstream processes can work well. So out of a lake or a river or a stream, the water may be fairly nice today. There may be a rain event, and now you have a lot of sediment, a lot of things suspended. You can still pull water from that. Protecting downhole injection. Again, now the water may be produced water from the production process. You've got oils and greases and particles. You need the particles removed. We still filter in the presence of those oils and greases. So another key aspect. And really the mainstay of this technology we're learning right now is a lot of pull into the meat production industry. So kill plants and cook plants where there's a tremendous amount of wastewater in many times it's a high degree of salinity within it. And we are able to aid additional processes in that wastewater processing step. So removing solids in the presence of all the fats, oils, and greases in there, bone chunks, feathers, you name it, all the wash down, sediment, things like that, to process that water so that you can either enhance or dissolve your flotation, or you can add in some state-of-the-art membrane solutions that enable you to do some of that, get into some of the dissolved removal aspects.
Does the product have a brand name or a model name? Maybe that's what you can.
Yes, sir, it does. And so there's the disclaimer, and I've got to protect Rick a little on this. We named it before he joined us. So if the name isn't good, I have to take full responsibility because it is kind of techy. What do you get when you let engineers name your product? Well, the answer is the name has to be synonymous with what it does. So it's called the Velray X. And it's called Velray because the main thing within the filter that defines how it operates is the velocity ratio of the fluid past the slot versus through the slot. So it's called a Velray, and the X is because it flows in a helical fashion across a cylindrical filter. So there you go, full techie, the Velray X is there. We like the name, and Rick will put a smile on his face and take it, but I'm sure he'll never let the engineers name our next product.
Say your piece, Rick. Say your piece.
I take exception to that because when Scott and I were talking about me coming over here, obviously being commercial oriented versus engineering oriented, those two a lot of times don't mix, right? And in this case, when Scott and I were talking, I was helping him early on when he was developing some of his pitch decks. And then he was like, well, I'm going to go create a logo. And I'm like, why didn't you ask me to do that? I'm the commercial side. Well, he comes back with, see the water drop over there over Scott's right shoulder. And I'm like, who developed that? And he goes, I did. And then he breaks that water drop down. And then I added to it, and it went into right in what he's talking about today. So you can see the water drop, and there's an A for accelerated. And then if you go the bottom two, horizontal, there's an F. So there's accelerated filtration in the water. And then he was talking about excellence for everything. And then before he finished, or he may have been finished, I said, oh, and you got the E in there for excellence. And he goes, oh, I didn't know I put the E in there. And so there was another leg to it. So Scott's done an amazing job. And then when he explained Velrex, I was all in. So I in this case, he's got the ability to get on the commercial side in a big way. So
I can't take credit for that drop. That's by an amazing graphic artist named Casey Freshour in Ann Arbor. But he loves to put Easter eggs in his work. He's phenomenal. Check him out. But that was where the A and the F came from. It's a moving water droplet. The little horizontal slats were initially showing that the water droplet's moving. Then they also represent the slots in our filter. Then you get the A and the F, and the helical, the F tail shows that it swirls. There's just so many Easter eggs in there. And then, when Rick found the E, we're like, you're absolutely right. Excellence and everything sits right there in the E. So full of Easter eggs, and we keep finding more.
Well, the one thing I can't see because you're sitting in front of the accelerated filter writing, but I was expecting to see a little TM in parentheses around the little logo.
There is a TM that is not showing up.
Okay. Well, now we can't use that, Chris, on our products then. So that's trademarked.
Yeah, no problem. So let me ask this question, right? So now we know the name of the company and all that sort of stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about, your target customer? Who are you going to go after here? What's the plan for your marketing?
Sure, I'll start, and I want Rick to jump in from the commercial side on this. But really, when we look at the market, it comes back to understanding that globally, we are quickly moving into and have moved into a position where we have to deal with water we used to turn up our nose at. We have to, from an industrial perspective, recycle and reuse water to the degrees higher than were ever wanted or may be warranted. So sustainability efforts are in play, and supply is in play. That's one of the reasons this had to form and attack this technology, because we knew this type of technology is needed to access difficult water, and it's not there today. It needs to be easy, automatic, affordable. So when we look at it, is where are the water problems? Where is the water too dirty to start? Where is your clarifier out of control? Where are bag filters not a good solution because you're using thousands of them in a day and a lot of labor, and you're filling landfills full of plastic bags? Those types of situations and problems are where we're looking hard. So again, really the beachheads for us are the cook plants and kill plants, the wastewater there, downhole injection protection, mining protection of equipment and mining, keeping open cooling towers, operating and the suspended solids out of those. And we keep finding more applications, vegetable wash applications where the vegetables are coming into the process and need to be cleaned and washed before they begin to be sliced, that type of thing. All key applications for us. So really, again, we go back to where is the customers having significant problems? Where is the water too dirty or difficult to start with? And those are the ones we tend to hone in on.
Do you plan to manufacture and design application-specific devices or a generic product that can be used widely?
Right. One of the beauties of this product is we have yet to tailor it for any specific application because it works well in everything we've been in. So what we believe we'll be tailoring in the future are, maybe a slot size for a specific type of process fluid or application. We can also tailor the cleaning brushes. And then there are polymeric bearings inside. Right now, we choose either Buna rubber or Viton, and those can be, again, tailored based on the applications. So just some materials tweaks. But today, the same thing that runs in meat processing is the same thing that runs in oil and gas, is the same thing that runs in surface water transport.
It's a critical applications for what you're doing. I mean, I came from the world doing mass flow controllers, if you're familiar with those, both for air and liquid. And we had to get down to no bigger than 0.02 micron in size for the semiconductor industry. So it was a tough job to do and maintain.
Yes.
Those applications were more put into the clean rooms, down to a class 10 clean room for making chips and getting down to the die level. So that's pretty critical. So, well, you built the prototype.
Oh yeah, okay.
Probably more than one, and you tested it somewhere besides yourself.
Yeah.
I would hope. And so, in that application that you put it into with this potential partner business, how did that turn out? What did you learn from that?
So really, you're going back to the days of the early corporate ownership of the technology and the startup realm. That moved into a corporate realm, and really the first applications were protecting downhole injection sites. So taking that oily, greasy water, and that's really where we went in with a minimum viable product, and that defined what the next gen product needed to be, and it defined that the technology worked with its shortcomings, right? So it was a really good minimum viable product that happened. So what the customers would say is too many moving parts, too much plastic and steel trying to hook itself together. What is a fiberglass housing? Why do you have it there? Why is that custom? All these things where we drive forward to what we have today is just simplicity, just a few number of parts, put it in a pipe, make everything very simple, very functional, very easy to surface. And that's really what those initial trials came from is, it works, but man, this product form is not what we're looking for. And that helped us drive to today to the product form we have.
Excellent.
And then just maybe to round your answer out, so there's a lot of product knowledge and development that Scott did on the corporate side. He spent, I think, like 15, 16 years in the water side of the business. And so it's like in industry, right? It's a big world out there where there's applications, but it's a small world when you start talking about technologies, and in particular new technologies that can work, in particular in the water. What we found is there's been a lot of like new technologies that have come out in the water filtration world, and a lot of them just don't work as the earlier predecessor didn't. But it gave really good kind of a North Star for Scott to fix the problems that he was hearing back on the corporate side, and he fixed those when he introduced the Velray X into what it is today. The other part of that is because of his background and his reputation, we've been able to, doors have been opened because of that. They're like, hey, here's a guy that spent 20 plus years in corporate R&D that has now jumped out late stage entrepreneur. And they're like, if he's doing that as an engineer that had spent that long on the R&D side, he must have something, right? So I think his reputation and his focus on excellence, I think, has really parlayed some early doors being opened where we could go into, for instance, the meat processing industry. There are people that have migrated out that Scott continues to know that contacted us, and then that opened the door, and then we got into these trials, and then we've been able to, we're a B2B distribution. So as we started trying to, I wouldn't say we're picking our partners, but the ones that we are aligning with, they're starting to see success in the trials that we're into. So I would give a lot of hats off to Scott's reputation and his desire to jump out into the entrepreneur space, and people looking at that saying, if somebody like that did that, let's contact him.
Well, Scott certainly has superb technical prowess. I'll agree to that. And I like the way he thinks about putting a product together and all the things. He certainly has the discipline, and that's an important factor as well. We got about 2 minutes left of your segment, so I was going to let Chris follow up with a couple more.
All right, guys. So I got another question for you, kind of like product wise, and what's the throughput of the Velray? Is it does it have a certain limit to the output? Is it scalable? Can you daisy chain these? Can you tell us about that aspect?
Sure, that's a great question. So the throughput of the flagship product we have out is 400 gallons a minute, and it will run that staunchly in a wide range of water types and contaminant levels. So with that, one of the key things is there are replaceable parts in the inside, and service needs to happen like any moving part, any machine, any filter. It's very easy. We designed it to do that. And one of the cool aspects about this is we designed the largest filter we could build that an operator or a pair of operators can service with no external devices needed, like a lift or a gantry or anything. So the parts are 30 pounds or less that you remove to meet OSHA requirements. So it's all serviceable by a technologist or two. Easy. It's been designed for that, to be quick. Open it up in 20 minutes and put it back together and have it running again. So, and then from the water perspective, we designed it so that one of these filters could run a 24 element ultrafiltration skid. That was kind of one of the early things that the interest in it from a corporate perspective was as a pre-filter for ultrafiltration, the base technology. So we set it so that one filter could service a bank of up to 24 UF filters. And then we also built them with a very, very compact footprint. So you just daisy chain them, like you said, Chris, you put them just side by side. So you couldn't get any more of a packaging space improvement by building one large skid. We made it so you can modularly just sit skids beside each other. It's that element approach. If you want a lot of ultrafiltration, you buy a lot of elements. If you build a big reverse osmosis plant, you put in a lot of reverse osmosis filter cartridges. So that same paradigm of just add more, keep adding on, and just put the number of units in you need to meet your flow requirement. That's the design paradigm behind the Bellray.
Well, let me just post one more quick question to you, because in the month prior to this and the month prior to that, especially in the lead up to World Water Day, which was earlier this year, we've had a couple of guests on talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. So you guys fit smack right in the middle of number 6, right? And that's that's looking at non-traditional kind of water sources and doing all that. In just a second here, you guys can talk about how our listeners can find out more about you. But I'm going to make a comment about the website because I was pretty impressed with it. Especially there's kind of like a little socialization factor on there where you guys are making an effort to socialize on social media the water scarcity factor. And I got to tell you, my hat's off to you for doing that. So in the last couple of minutes here, guys. If our listeners want to know a little bit more, want to perhaps contact you or get some more information, where can they go? What can they do?
Yeah, so we're active on LinkedIn. Again, we don't have a ton of money to be spending in marketing outwardly, but we're finding lots of good hits on LinkedIn. So you can find us there at Accelerated Filtration. You can also look up Scott Burr or myself. And then we have a website right now, informational website, just to prove and show the technology, and that's acelfil.com. So it's acelfil.com, and that's our website. So those are the two main ways you can find us out there.
All right. Scott Burr, Rick Penn from Accelerated Filtration Inc., aka AFI. Appreciate you so much sharing your expertise, sharing your story on the Water Zone. Rob and I kind of gave a nod and a wink before you guys came on today that if this went well, we'd love to have you back. And it went well, so we'd love to have you back. Awesome. Get an update from you a little bit later. We didn't have any doubts, fellas. Don't worry about it.
Well, we'd love to have you if you ever go on site. I mean, especially in the summertime. I know you both live in desirable places, but if you ever want to do a show from Michigan, we're here, and it's a beautiful state, specifically in the summertime. So you're always welcome to come see us as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Roll us out, Rob.
I was always curious about the last comment you made about the marketing doesn't have the money to do all that stuff. I can tell you that happens in big corporations just as well. They always tell you, being an engineer like Scott, you come and ask them, no, we don't have the money for that. It's not in the budget this year. We'll wait till next year, stuff like that. So I know you got to be good friends to get along to take the yeses and nos, and you guys look like you're a perfect pair to run the business. So congratulations on your business, and hope you get to be some trade shows. That would be really good for you too.
Excellent. Absolutely. Thank you, and thank you for having us on. We greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Scott. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's also wonderful bringing new technology on, and that can be used for lots of different things and produce water and a whole bunch of things. So That's one of the things we try to do, bring technology along with information, anything about water. So, Chris, great show.
Great show to you too. And what we always say every week, Rob, is help keep our planet
blue. Because if you like green, you've got to have blue. Good night, everybody. We'll talk
See you next week.
NBC News on KCAA.